Hello there, lovely folks at YouTube. Ren here. It's kind of a rainy day. I'm back in my now sort of ritual room. It's the guest bedroom. It was my son's bedroom for a while, but you know, there's the whole thing there. But anyway, I'm here in front of my bookcase again. Yay. And I'm here to talk about a book. It's one of the books I recently got. Fabulous little book. This is The Witch's Cabinet by Corrine Boyer. This is published by Three Hands Press, which is an independent occult publisher. It was put out in, I believe, August of 2021. I splurged a little bit, kind of rewarded myself, and got the super special fancy hardcover edition of this book. Now these books are run on a limited print. They are not easy to obtain. They are not cheap. But this book in particular, so freaking worth it. I am so happy I bought this book. Now Corrine Boyer, of course, I was actually introduced to her works by one of the commenters on one of my very, very early YouTube channels. I can't remember who it was. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with people and names and all of that. But thank you, because holy crap, her stuff is so good, and this book is no exception. So now, one thing I want to talk about before we get into this book really deeply is that this book is not written as a cohesive whole. It is actually a collection of essays. So each chapter is an individual essay on a particular topic relating to plants and witchcraft. Because of that, because each chapter was basically written as a standalone piece, sometimes there's some overlap in the material. Sometimes you'll be reading something and you'll be like, having that sort of deja vu feeling of like, wait, I've read this before. That's because each individual chapter, she sometimes has to give the same context for the material. So there is sometimes a little bit of repetition in some of the material, but it's fairly minimal, and necessary when you understand that particular context of how each chapter was intended to be read as a standalone essay. So, even though there is that little bit of repetition in the material, I don't count it against the author because I understand the context of why it was written that way. So, as I mentioned, each chapter is an individual essay. They all deal in some way with the intersection of plants and witchcraft. Some of the chapters delve specifically into the folklore of one particular plant. The three in particular that I know of are roses, elder, and lilies. And some of you may be surprised by at least two of those on that list, because we don't necessarily think of we don't always think of either roses or lilies as being a witchy plant, but yeah, oh, it's so good. And then there are other things that are talking about plants that are used in specific contexts. For example, plants that are used in preventing nightmares, plants that are used, hang on, I have my notes here, plants that are used for second sight, plants that are used in curses. So yeah, really cool stuff there. And then there's also some things about sort of like tangentially related to plants. For example, magical spells and folklore that use seeds in their workings, things that use dew, which is usually collected from plants in some way, spells and workings that use straw, you know, which of course is just the sort of like dead plant matter that's left behind from the different grain species that we harvest. So very, very cool topics, stuff that you don't usually see elsewhere, covered in a lot of detail in this book. And that's another thing that I always, always, always love about her books, is that not only does she go into a lot of detail, pulling up a lot of really obscure folklore sources that you can't really find elsewhere, she gives citations. Everything in here has its citation, its footnotes, extensive bibliography. You know where she's getting this information, unlike some other authors. Excuse me, sorry, I had something in my throat there. But yes, she gives a lot of sources for this material, which of course, every time it happens, I'm all like, ah, crap, now it's expanding my reading list even more. I got too many books on my to-read list that I can't handle already, and now I got to add more books. But yes, fabulous, fabulous. what can I say? It's the, you know, I have the science background. Anytime you're going to give me a source, I'm just always like, oh, it makes me feel so good. It makes me feel so good. So, yes. So, yeah, it's a great book. It's very engaging. It's well written. There's ample citations for the material in it. What's not to love? Golly. Now, as a personal aside, this book has actually, one of the sections of the book, I won't go into too much detail, it's kind of personal, but this book has actually finalized in my head for me a tattoo idea that I've had, because it's been kicking around in my head. I hadn't been able to like kind of hammer down exactly what I wanted. I just had like a general idea. Thanks to this book and some of the folklore that I've read in this book, I now have an actual finalized detail idea of exactly what tattoo I want to cover this freaking scar that I got here on my arm. So that's just a really cool thing for me too. So yeah, I mean, you know, how more can I gush over this book, really? So yeah, like I said, it's not easy to get. I ordered mine directly from the Three Hands Press website. Yeah, it's not a cheap book, but it's a worthy book to spend your money on. So anyway, that's all I have for you today on this little one. I hope this video finds you well, and I will see you again soon.